The 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114. Harley-Davidson advances its 100 new bike agenda in 2019 with the new FXDR 114 that turns the nearly new Softail into a drag race-inspired stoplight burner. The factory went outside the envelope for design inspiration, with some interesting results that head in an unexpected direction to say the least. A 114 cubic inch engine delivers the goods to make the FXDR the most powerful production Softail up for grabs so far this year, so you can be assured that it's by no means an all-show, no-go machine. Plus, an effort was made to shed some weight to improve handling and ride quality, and that translates into even better acceleration to make this a rather sporty, non-Sportster ride. Let's dive into the details. Continue reading for my review of the Harley-Davidson FXDR 114. 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114 design. The FXDR 114 is definitely an odd bird, a Frankenstein creation that starts out normally enough, but all that changes at the tail end. The FXDR 114 is definitely an odd bird, a Frankenstein creation that starts out normally enough, albeit with a custom look due to the cut-down fender, inverted forks and liberal blackout treatment. A mini speed screen tops the headlight to serve both as a brow and a trim piece that contains and protects the electronic instrument panel that features a 2.14-inch LCD screen and indicator lights to take care of business. Bar-style whisker lights serve as the front winkers to finish the forward lighting, and that minimalistic approach carries into the hand control area as Harley ditches the full-size handlebar in favor of low-profile clip-ons to keep things tidy up top. I don't know about you, but I think this bike absolutely screams for bar-end mirrors, probably even in the inverted position. A 4.4-gallon teardrop fuel tank maintains the low-profile look and leaves plenty of room to tuck in when you really want to get jiggy with it. So far, the factory has more or less colored inside the lines, but all that changes at the tail end. First off, let me say, I'm not a fan. I don't know if the engineers were going for an aircraft cockpit look, or were just looking for some way of terminating the subframe early in order to justify the hugger-style rear fender, but I ain't feeling it. I do like the look of the hugger over that wide rear tire. To be honest, my objection lies entirely with the sheet metal that makes up the tail itself. More light bars ride on the hugger along with the license plate holder to finish out the gear in the rear in a manner most unusual and progressive for the Moco that has, for so many years, banked on a retro-heavy design philosophy. Even the 2-into-1 exhaust adds a modern, almost Euro-tastic flair to the look that makes it clear, HD is definitely targeting a new type of Harley rider. At least the model designator seems to have a basis in history. The FX part reflects the fact that the bike is built around the narrow frame and front end, and as for the D, the FXD was the old Super Glide, but FXR and Dyna frames have been put out to pasture, so it looks like the new Softail line gets to make its own version. As for the R, I'm going to guess it's for race, even if the racing is likely from one stoplight to the next. 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114 chassis. There's no doubt that the factory's efforts to drop some heft will register on your hiney dyno. A big part of what makes the FXDR look so different, other than the tail-end sheet metal of course, is the swing arm, namely, the fact that it has one in the traditional yoke layout rather than the usual triangular cage that articulates the Softail's rear wheel. In another major change, the swing arm is made up of lightweight cast aluminum instead of steel to drop a total of 10.2 pounds of unsprung weight and improve suspension response. In short, less weight means the shock has less energy to manage with a concurrent increase in traction and stability, so even though it looks a little odd, it actually increases the performance of a frame that was only recently revamped to increase the overall agility and rideability of the Softail line. Oh, and that funny tail section? It's aluminum tubing as well, so as a whole, that odd rear end cuts out another 7 pounds of steel, and fenders at both ends come made of composite material that is lighter than the usual sheet metal bits. Make no mistake, it's still quite a chunk of mass at 668 pounds wet, but there's no doubt that the factory's efforts to drop some heft will register on your hiney dyno. The wheelbase is stretched out a bit longer than usual for a Softail model, mainly due to the 34-degree rake that pushes the 19-inch front wheel out to put the contact patches 68.4 inches apart with 4.7 inches of trail. Yeah, these numbers clearly point to a ride that is stable in the straights, but the lean angles also indicate a certain amount of litheness in the corners, with a claimed 32.6 degrees to the right side, and 32.8 degrees to the left. Elbow dragging country? Hardly. But probably more lean angle than most cruiser riders will ever willingly pull. ABS is standard equipment across the spectrum, with dual, 4-piston calipers up front to provide the bulk of the stopping power. It isn't the fancy lean-sensitive ABS like the CVO models are rocking this year, but I imagine it won't take long for that tech to trickle down. The only adjustment to the suspension is found at the rear shock in the form of a hand knob that allows for quick spring preload adjustment without the benefit of tools. To round out the rolling chassis, the factory opted for a solid disc, 18-inch rear rim to mount the wide, 240/40 tire opposite the 120/70 that leads the way on a 19-inch rim that runs with 5 double spokes. 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114 drivetrain. The Milwaukee 8-114 has plenty of torque mid-range in the rev band to deliver hole shots and provide low-stress cruising at highway and interstate speeds. As cool as the rest of the bike is, the beating heart is still the real showpiece here. The Milwaukee 8-114 packs in the inches with, you guessed it, 114 cubic inches, 1,868 cc tucked away within the massive jugs. A pair of 4-valve heads cap the 102mm bores, and as usual, the engine runs an undersquare, long-stroke layout with a 114mm stroke and 10.5:1 compression ratio. That's right, you can forget about running the cheapest pump swill you can find, it's nothing less than road champagne for this ride. There is nothing in the way of fandanglery as far as the engine control system is concerned. Like the corner-sensitive ABS, the traction control and back torque mitigation systems are still being tested on the trike models and have yet to make it onto any two-wheelers, but I expect it to do so sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, the FXDR has a fairly vanilla engine control system that uses a single throttle body to feed the beast. Since the factory, wisely, decided to return to the single-cam system, the right side of the case and the nosecone area have also returned to historical norms along with the pushrod geometry, so performance considerations aside, it's a better-looking engine than the late twin-cam mill. As for the performance, the factory claims a total of 119 pound-feet of torque that tops out at 3,500 revolutions per minute to deliver in the hole shots, and provide low-stress cruising at highway, interstate speeds via the 6-speed transmixer that sends power to the rear wheel by a quiet and low-maintenance, carbon-reinforced belt. 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114 pricing. MSRP puts the FXDR 114 at the top of the Softail range at $21,000 plus. Your taste in color directly affects the asking price for the FXDR 114. As usual, the vivid black model is at the bottom of the totem pole with its $21,349 sticker, but for another 4 Benjamins you can get it in black denim, industrial gray denim, rawhide denim, my fave, Bonneville salt denim, and wicked red denim. ABS is standard, as is the security system, but California buyers can expect a $200 hit for emissions equipment. 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114 competitor. Ducati comes out on top with electronic wizardry and still beats Harley at the checkout counter. What to do? Harley has pushed beyond the current design limitations of its main domestic competitor, Indian Motorcycle, so I had to go pretty far afield to find a good enough match, and I think Ducati nails it with its Cruise-tastic XDiavel. A bold, raked-out front end leads the way with a bobtail subframe that peters out to nothing over the rear wheel in much the same way as the FXDR. While it's true that the XDiavel has some very sportbike-like inclinations, the position of the foot controls fall out in the forward position, and that forces a shift in attitude right along with the adjustment to your riding posture. Even more than the Softail, Ducati's entry looks like an engine that happens to have a bike wrapped around it due to the trellis frame and stressed engine setup. Still, the looks are liable to appeal to a similar buyer as the FXDR, I reckon. Ducati's Teststrada engine churns out 93 pound-feet of torque, and that falls well short of the Mil 8 plant in the Harley, but the Italian ride weighs in almost 200 pounds lighter, so the available torque has less mass inertia to overcome. Cornering abs, riding modes and traction control features push the XDR past Harley in the tech department, even though the Moco is developing its own tech along those lines. Price won't be a big selling point here. The XDR rolls for $20,495, so it's just a skosh under the FXDR 114, but that's not enough to entice someone that's straddling the fence. He said. Not sure what I expected, but the FXDR seems to try to deliver a look similar to the ill-fated V-Rod family, and we all know how that worked out. That said, I do appreciate the increased attention to performance along with the newfound courage at the drawing board, and even though I ain't feeling it, I'll bet there are plenty out there who are. She said. My wife and fellow motorcycle rider, Alan Hinton, says, this bike has features inspired from the Harley NHR18 with the snazzy new intake and forward sweep exhaust, giving it a deep, throaty rumble that is unique among the Softails. The chassis gives hints of the breakout frame, but only a hint since it's been worked to really improve handling, especially in turns. It looks like a drag bike and it's certainly built with performance in mind. I'm not sure I'm really feeling it at this price point. I wonder, really, how it might stack up against a Yamaha VMAX. 2019 Harley-Davidson FXDR 114 specifications.
If you liked this video, please share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.